Welcome to Austin, Texas. Lee and Joe Jameo Texas Swimming Center for day number 3, the final day of coverage for the 2018 University of Texas Hall of Fame Diving Invitational. And this is a good one as we get to head to the towers, starting with the women. Thank you so much for joining us. Tyler Denning alongside 4-time All-American Kat LaRocca. And Kat, we've seen the women compete on both the 1 meter and the 3 meter. It's been a great competition thus far.
It has. Now, Coach Goggin was probably a little surprised and disappointed by his athletes' performance the first day in the 3 meter. A little inconsistent. Timing looked a little bit off for most of them. However, at this point in the season, that's to be expected. They're not supposed to peak right now. They're trying to work out some stuff, maybe try some more challenging dives. What he is happy about is that they came back on the 1 meter, and Allison Gibson was able to come from behind to win. And that's the type of mentality that you want to see at this point.
Well, when you talk this event platform, it starts with Texas's Murphy Bromberg.
Absolutely. There, to me, is nobody else in this competition that can keep up with her. She has by far the toughest dives. She also has the most experience. A 4-time Big 12 champion, but she's also competed internationally at Grand Prix. She's a U.S. champion. Frankly, she's got the best dives, and I'd be shocked to see anybody able to touch her.
If she will be challenged today, you figure it will be from the diver from Texas A&M, Elise Kalanji.
Yeah, she has the next most difficult amount of dives, all off of the 10 meter as well. She's the reigning SEC champion, so we know she can compete in a pressure-packed situation. She struggled last year at NCAA, so I think this year she's really looking to come back and have a strong year.
One that we're excited to bring you. We head to the tower. We start with the women, Murphy Bromberg, Elise Kalanji. 17 competitors coming your way to kick things off the final day of the 2018 UT Hall of Fame Diving Invitational. Women's platform next. So day number 3, been exciting 2 days thus far on both the men's and the women's side, but this one we haven't got to bring your way on Longhorn Network for a couple of years. Platform diving. 2014, the last year that you saw it live on the air. But the big reason these teams here, NCAA's, here in the spring, so these coaches, including Jay LaRue from Texas A&M, coming down and getting a chance to get some experience on these boards, on platform as well, as that will be the NCAA scoring format come the spring.
And coaches like Jay LaRue and Dave Parrington, who we spoke about yesterday from Tennessee, they're taking this as an opportunity to have their divers familiarize themselves with the pool, the platforms, the diving boards, and also the structure and what their days are going to look like when they're here in March for NCAA championships.
A little different in the format. For platform, there are no preliminaries. That's something determined just due to the nature of the diving, as Sean Myers, the senior from Tennessee, will start things out. But also travel constraints for all these teams wanting to get back as well. No prelims, then finals, so it'll just be 17 divers. We'll get to show you most of them, but focus on the top 8 as well.
We will. And you know what? At this point in the season, it is very difficult to be competing 2 tower lists in one day. That's something you really only see at conference championships, at NCAA championships. Even at some of these bigger events or international events, they're usually broken up, and prelims will be one day, finals the next. It can really beat up some of these divers. They'll be sore tomorrow if they did 2 lists. So at this point in the season, we'll stick with just one.
Maggie Merriman, freshman from Purdue. First dive we've seen all the way from the top.
Front 3.5 tech there. She looked a little slow on that rotation. Needs to be more aggressive coming off of that platform. Get that momentum in that rotation moving a little bit faster.
Divers have the option as Merriman's scores come in, 40.50 of diving from either the 5 meter, 7 meter, or 10 meter height across their 5 dives, excuse me.
And that is something that is specific to the NCAAs. If you're looking at any kind of international or U.S. national championships, they would have to have all of their dives off of the 10 meter. But in this case, 5 meter, 7.5, 10, all play.
Estela Mosenya from the University of Arkansas. Her first dive. Italian diver.
Coach looks happy about it. Solid first round dive.
Monica Gaveris, a senior from the University of Hawaii. This is the most difficult dive I've seen thus far.
That's a great inward 2.5 pike in the air. Unfortunately, she needed to get a little bit more speed in that rotation in order to make it all the way around. Leaves it just under rotated. 4.5s, a couple 5s, and that's as a result of being just short of where she needs to be.
43.40. Lillian Schneider from 7.5 on the 105B.
And a front 2.5 in the pike position. Hold on to that pike a bit too long. Her timing seemed to be off. And when she reaches for the water, it's a bit too late, and she over-rotates it.
33.60 for Schneider. Jolie Blodgett from West Seneca, New York. Same dive.
Same dive. And this one, way more aggressive in the air, which I like to see. You want to see somebody really get after a dive and try to rotate it as quickly as they can. She is really frustrated in herself because she just held on to that pike far too long.
5 threes, a 3.5 and a 4 for a 25.20. Maha Ammer from the University of Arkansas.
Oh, now what she just did was the same dive that we just saw from the previous two divers, but she competed it off of the 5 meter instead of the 7.5. As a result, the degree of difficulty is a little bit higher because it's more difficult to complete that dive with less time to do it, if that makes sense.
Best dive we've seen thus far, 50.70. We'll put Ammer atop the leaderboard. 8th dive of round number 1, Connie Dayton from TCU.
This is a popular dive to start out with, and that's the best one we've seen off of the 7 meter. Looked a little bit hesitant maybe on the takeoff, not as aggressive as she probably could have been, but has great timing and comes out and reaches for the water at the right time.
Good scores. 6 7s, 1 6.5 for Dayton. Amy Wilson from LSU up on a 403B from the 5 meter.
That was a really pretty dive. It's a pretty simple and basic dive, so you need to execute it very well in order to see big scores from the judges. But a beautiful pike position in the air and a great entry.
Couple 6.5, 7s, 7.5 for Wilson. 50.40 is Ivy Hauser, sophomore from Indianapolis, Indiana. Left home, went a far way to dive for the University of Hawaii. Forward 3.5 somersault tuck from the 10 meter.
Oh, and not too bad, although when she took off from the end of that platform, she was pretty far back from the end. Several inches, almost a foot. So she might not have gotten the momentum and power off of that she needed. A little bit slow in the air.
44.55 for Hauser. Ana Hernandez, the sophomore from Monterrey, Mexico, dives for the University of Tennessee. Volunteer up on a forward 3.5 somersault pike. First DD we have seen in the 3s in the opening round.
Oh, that was a great dive. A little bit too much of a splash when she hits the water. Doesn't quite hit at the perfect angle in order to secure a rip as she enters the water, but it looked good in the air, and she made that dive easily. I was talking with her coach yesterday. She has struggled with some knee injuries last year, and she's just slowly been coming back. So she's not quite where he's hoping she will be at the end of the season, but she's definitely getting there and making excellent improvements now that she's healthy.
Rates her scores. It's an even 51 for Hernandez. Paula Pineda, freshman from Veracruz, Mexico. DD of 3.2 on this inward 3.5 somersault tuck. So the hardest dive we have seen. Also from the 10 meter.
Oh, that's a disappointing way to start the round. I thought that looked pretty good on her takeoff, but she doesn't quite make that inward 3.5 all the way around. She gets fours, a couple of 4.5s from the judges for a total score of 40 points. Just really needed to stand over her toes a little bit more off of the platform and get some momentum going into that rotation.
And Kat, for most of these competitors, if not all, throughout the fall, they have not dove platform in competition. So for many of these, we're seeing in competition first time diving.
Absolutely, which is why you want to come to an invitational at this point in the season. All of the dual meets that they've been competing in are just 1 meter and 3 meter. So to get some experience and get some practice in a competition like this is the most important part.
Sophia Rousey, the senior from the University of Texas, hails from just up the road in Round Rock.
Oh, and unfortunately, it looks like she got, whether it was a little bit lost in the air or just didn't get the rotation she was looking for, comes out too early, ends up having to bend her knees to try to make it all the way around and save herself a bit there.
NCAA qualifier in 2017 and 2018 for the 2017 Big 12 champion and platform. Scores of even 2s for Rousey. She placed second on platform at the Big 12 championships last year. Lizzie Q saw her yesterday. Impressive performance on the 1 meter. The Olympian from New Zealand.
And that was a beautiful dive, but Lizzie will be competing all of her dives today down on the 5 meter. So she's not going to have as tough a dives as you'll see from Kalanji and from Murphy Bromberg. So as nice as that dive was, it's really tough to keep up from a score standpoint. Just 48 points on that. Even though it was good scores, it's just not tough enough.
All of her dives underneath a DD of 2.6. It's tough when you compare that to, say, dive list from Bromberg. They're all 3.0 or above. Rachel Rubadu, the senior from Columbus, Ohio, diving for University of Tennessee.
Now this is an inward 2.5 pike. Well, she'll turn backwards on the platform, but actually rotate forward towards the platform, which tends to throw some people off while they're watching, I think. And that was a great dive. If she had pointed her toes, I would have loved it. Unfortunately, what you see in the air a lot of the times is just flexed feet the whole way. Understandable. I'd really like to keep my toes probably away from the platform as well. But she does make it around. You can hear her hands get a good rip sound on the water, but still a little bit too much of a splash coming off of her body.
54.60 for Rubadu. Will put her atop the leaderboard, and here the two divers come. Talked about in the open, starting with Alais Kalanji, the senior from Texas A&M, from the 10 meter with an inward 3.5 somersault tuck.
That was a great takeoff. A little bit off on her timing coming out of that tuck and reaching for the water. Reaches under herself a little bit, which lets it wash over, but that was a perfect distance from the platform. Really confident on the end of that platform and got after the dive. Unfortunately, just rotating a little bit faster maybe than she realized and doesn't come out on time.
6 5.5s and 2 6s for Kalanji. gives her a 52.80. So the final dive of round number 1. Same dive from Murphy Bromberg, this senior from Bexley, Ohio. 3-time All-American, 2-time honorable mention All-American for the 4-time Big 12 champ. 17-18 Big 12 Diver of the Year. Finished second at NCAA's on platform last year.
There's just a difference in her quality of diving. She is so confident on the end of the platform. So strong coming off of the tower, gets right into that tight tuck, makes it look easy, is able to pike out and reach for the water. A little bit of a splash, but that was what you can expect from Murphy Bromberg.
Talked about at top of the show, it is her competition to lose. Murphy Bromberg, second at last year's NCAA's, is first after that powerful 72. She is clear well of Rubidou. A very impressive opening dive from the redshirt senior, Murphy Bromberg. Our final event of the Invitational for the women. Second time through the order. Hernandez, Amr, Wilson, Deaton, and Q round out the top 8.
And it was basically as we expected. I think Murphy Bromberg now has that almost 18-point lead. And if she continues on that pace, she'll outperform the competition by round 4. So we'll see if she's up for that kind of challenge.
But obviously the challenge for Bromberg, using this, wanting to hone that mentality.
Oh yeah, that's the best part of this meet, is that you get a chance to finally get back up there on tower. She had some injuries a few years back and had to very slowly come back through it. So I think Coach Goggin wanted to be very patient, making sure she came back healthy. And now that she is completely healthy, getting as many repetitions in competition under her belt as possible is key.
Maggie Merriman, second dive, back 2.5 somersault pike.
A little bit over-rotated. The most important part of this dive is coming off of the platform at the right angle and making sure you see your visual cues and see your spot to come out and reach for the water at the right time. That can be very tricky on this dive, and you see a lot of people struggle to land in the water at the perfect angle.
39.15 on the dive from Merriman. Messenia, 105C.
Oh, I like that she just goes. She doesn't mess around. She gets to the end of the platform. You see some people get a little nervous, and others take more the approach of just walk to the end and go. A front 2.5 tuck there. Again, off of the 5 meter. So the difficulty is just not as high as some of the other things we're going to see.
Gavaris, first arm stand we have seen.
How would you feel about doing a handstand on the end of the platform?
Pass. Big pass for me.
You seem to love the idea of 10 meter. It's a nerve-wracking thing.
I can't even walk up there.
No. She has excellent control in that handstand. Now, on an arm stand, one of the things they're looking for, you need to hold the handstand. They're not judging the dive until your legs are together and you are in a solid handstand. So once she got up there, you need to hold it for about 3 seconds and show control, and then pop off of that platform into the dive. She looks a little frustrated with that one. Really didn't get the kind of power she needed off of the tower, so she wasn't able to fully complete the dive all the way around.
2 threes will be the scores taken for a 29.40. There's Lily Schneider. Competed back. 1.5 somersault pike off the 5 meter. I could do the 5 meter.
You could do 5 meter? You'd climb up to 5. Good for you. You know what? Me too at this point. I think that might be where I stop now too. Back 1.5 pike there. 5 and a halves, a couple sixes. It was just a little shy of vertical, and also her position in the air wasn't as tight of a pike as you probably want to see.
So we were talking about this prior to the show. You only competed tower a couple of times. What is it that differentiates or pushes a diver towards tower, and how it's so much more different than the 1 meter and the 3 meter?
You know, some people gravitate towards it just from a skill set standpoint. Your body also has to just be a different type. You have to be durable to really handle platform and handle 10 meter. It is brutal on your shoulders, on your backs. It just can be very injury prone. So I think I'm always incredibly impressed with those platform divers that have been doing it and been up on that 10 meter for about a decade now. When you're talking about somebody like Murphy Bromberg, it can be tough.
Block it in with her second dive, a 405B, the hardest of her 5 in the dive sheet. Score of 28, cumulative 53.20. It's Maha Amer. She was in 5th place after her first dive. This her hardest dive, DD of 3.1.
Oh, just a little bit short. She looked pretty good coming off of the platform. Maybe needed to be over her toes a little bit more in order to get enough momentum in that rotation to make it all the way around to that 2.5. I say that like it's so easy, but standing backwards on a platform and to say to stand over your toes a little bit further when you're literally diving into a platform can be a little bit tricky.
2 4.5's the score taken for Amer. 7th place after one dive, Connie Deaton.
Doing an inward 2.5 tuck as well, but this time off of the 7 meter. The degree of difficulty, 2.5 extra meters to complete the same amount of dive. 4.5s, a couple 4s from the judging panel.
36.45 for the diver from TCU. 6th place after her first dive, Amy Wilson, 105B from the 5 meter.
That was a good looking dive. A lot of times the dives that they're competing down on 5 meter are what we call lead ups, where they're doing a front 2.5 on the 5 meter in preparation to go up to the 10 meter and compete a front 3.5.
Good scores for Wilson.
Yes, absolutely. That was a very solid dive.
Ivy Hauser. .405C from the 7.5. Great look there, just kind of gives you some depth as to how high this platform actually is, not even the highest.
Absolutely. It is tough to really see without some perspective just how high these women are. That was a great dive. Did you hear that pop sound when she hit the water? That's called a rip, where your hands make that pop sound and you're able to pull all the water under with you. Excellent entry. Still a small splash there. You might see a better rip here and there throughout the competition, but that's the kind of sound you want to listen for.
You talked about the shoulders, the hands, the forearms have to be pretty strong too, right?
Oh,
The
absolutely. Triceps, shoulders, you name it.
Ana Hernandez saw her brother compete earlier this week for LSU. He was very impressive.
He is. He is incredibly strong, and it looks like it runs in the family. Anna looking extremely strong up there. Right now on the 5 meter, her coach said she's predominantly a platform diver and coming off some issues with her knees last season, but feeling a lot stronger as she gets back into it.
Was in 4th place after her first dive. That her hardest dive she just competed, the 405C from the 5 meter.
I think she pushed that one a little bit back away from the platform on her takeoff, which just slows down your momentum as you're trying to come through the dive.
52.70 for Ana. Paolo Pineda is her easiest dive, a 105B from the 5 meter height.
And again, this is probably being competed just as a lead up for now with the goal of eventually doing a front 3.5 pike off of the 10 meter. It's a good pike position in the air. She gets plenty of speed in that rotation, just way too much splash when she hits the water.
.10. Sophia Rousey.
Looking for a good bounce back dive here. Struggled in her first round. And this is where, especially at this point in the season, you just want to see her able to shake that off and come back strong. And she does. That's excellent. That's just, it takes some mental strength to be able to forget about your first dive, put it in the past, and move forward. Here she's able to do that with a really solid second round, inward 2.5, a bit too much splash when she hits the water, but it looked great in the air.
So good bounce back dive for Rousey. Score 6s, 6.5s, 55.80 for the senior from Round Rock, Texas. Elizabeth Q. 105B.
It's a nice looking dive. Nothing too fancy in a front 2.5 pike. You just want to make sure you get yourself to the end of the platform, throw your arms forward and get enough momentum in that flip to complete the dive. Little bit short of vertical.
Score 46.80. And Kat, one thing we were talking about earlier this week, we were down watching the dives, and most coaches or assistant coaches, you see the big iPads. They're holding iPads and they're recording the dives. Instant feedback that they can give the competitors, just like when you were diving, right?
Oh, yeah. No, we had iPads back then, for sure. No, you know what? We always did have a TV system set up so you could ideally go back and watch the dive if you wanted to.
It wasn't VHS, right?
No, thank you, though. Thank you for that. I needed that. No, but we definitely didn't have the convenience of an iPad like that where you can really go in and analyze and zoom in on some of these dives while you're critiquing them. It's really amazing that you're able to add technology to this.
Well, I am the older one here, so.
That's true. So what does that make you?
Well familiar with VHS.
Rachel Rubidou with a front 3.5 tuck there. Didn't quite get the speed she needed off of the platform, so she didn't make that 3.5 round all the way like she needed to.
That's a disappointing dive, as Rubidou was second after her first dive. Alaise Kalanji was trailing her in third. She'll head up to the top, the 10 meter, for the forward 3.5 somersault tuck.
Oh, you know what? We just saw Sophia Rousey do something very similar, where it looked okay in the air. Right here, she still looks comfortable and looks solid, but comes out, reaches for the water, and just has maybe a mental slip up and bends her knees before she hits. You're going to see a lot of deductions because of that.
Couple of 2.5s, 1 4, 3s, and a 3.5 for Kalanji. Forward 3.5 somersault pike for Murphy Bromberg.
And she's the only athlete in this competition competing this. Oh, no. Well, yeah, I think she's the only one.
Currently in grad school for sports management.
Oh, she leaves that way shy of vertical. That's a huge slip up for her. That's very uncharacteristic. Looks a little bit over the edge of the platform. Needs to be standing up a little bit taller as she gets into that in order to get her arms all the way around and get the speed going. Just too slow in the air and doesn't quite make it around. Maybe just a little sluggish in the morning. Nobody should have to dive tower in the morning.
37.50 for Bromberg as she gets feedback from head coach Matt Scoggin, but still in the lead with a score of 109.50. 3 dives remain in the women's platform when we come back. Bromberg still atop the leaderboard, but that gap has shrunk. Tyler Denning, Kat LaRocca, you may have known her as Kat Kelly, her time. Hauser, Hernandez, Wilson, Q, Ammer, Masenia, and Pineda close out the top 8. Competitors have begun their way through round number 3. And Sean Myers just completed her third dive. Now Maggie Merriman up to the top, 10 meter for 305C.
Oh, that was a pretty solid dive for Maggie. You can hear her teammates cheering her on for that one. This is a reverse 2.5 tuck. You're standing at the end of the platform, but then jumping and rotating backwards. The key to this one is making sure you're coming off of the tower at the perfect angle and that you are seeing your spot in order to come out of that tuck and reach for the water.
Still in Mosenia.
A back 1.5 pike. Pretty simple dive down there on the 5 meter. Degree of difficulty is only a 2.3. She leaves it just a little bit short, doesn't quite make it all the way around, which is more of a timing thing. She had more than enough time and strength to do it. 5.5s, 5s from the judges.
Now, it may not look that high on TV, but when you start going up those stairs,
it's high.
even the 3 meter, you get up to the 3 meter and okay, impressive. Then 5, 7 is where, you know.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit deceiving on television. You may not fully appreciate just what these women are doing. Several stories high at this point. And tough on the body.
How fast?
I don't even know the statistics exactly.
How many dives
There's a lot
have
of
you
physics involved there.
done off the 10 meter?
Have I done?
Yeah.
Oh, just a handful. I injured my back at a pretty young age. A handful, none to even register on the
after
radar.
that?
Yeah. A front 2.5 pike. She opts not to do an approach on this one and instead chooses to stand at the end of the platform. Probably feels like she has a little bit more control over the dive from that standpoint. And a solid round dive. 6s and 5.5s. 1 6.5 as well. Judge 6 liked that one.
Lily Schneider will head to the arm stand for the forward 2 somersault pike.
Now, I think they're going to call a balk on this one. If you saw her in the beginning, she attempted to kick into the handstand or press into the handstand. Her feet came off and then came back down. You only get one chance to do that, and when you do, you will lose 2 points from every score. So the judges actually scored this 4.5 4s, but had to deduct 2 points as a result of that balk. We have another arm stand here, though, to see how she's able to manage that handstand.
This a forward 1 somersault pike.
And with this one, she didn't balk. She managed to get into the handstand on the first try, but she didn't hold the handstand. She never actually had a moment of control and 3 seconds there in the arm stand before executing the rest of the dive. So judges immediately are going to remove a couple points for that.
Maha Amer, the sophomore in the back 2.5 somersault tuck.
Oh, that was a good-looking dive if she had like maybe an extra meter or so to make it all the way around. She has some great technique and looks excellent in the air, just not quite enough strength to get that rotation going in order to make it. That's a tough dive down there off of the 5 meter. 3.5s for most of the judges, a few 4s thrown in there for a total of 33 points.
Diving for 3-time SEC Coach of the Year, Dale Schultz.
Back 1.5 pike here. She twists a little bit on her entry. You can see when she hits the water, her legs turn a little bit towards the judges, which they can see and will deduct for.
So Connie Deaton in with her third dive, 4 5.5s, 2 5s and a 6 for a 37.95. Amy Wilson in 4th place after 2 rounds.
Now the degree of difficulty is only a 2.5, but that was a very well executed back twister. Great twisting position in the air. Pretty good entry when she hit the water. 6.5s, 2 7s as well for a total of 48.75 to keep her probably in the same place in the standings.
We'll bring up the sophomore from the University of Hawaii, Ivy Hauser. Was in 2nd after 2. Was the MPSF Freshman of the Year at the conference that divers from Hawaii compete out of.
Oh, that one hurt. Just came out of that way too early. Didn't quite get the rotation she needed and unfortunately left it very short. Ouch. Yeah.
And you saw her mouth.
That doesn't feel good. She's coming off of a pretty high platform at 7.5 meters. Hitting the water like that is going to be painful.
15.40 for Hauser. Ana Hernandez trailed her in 3rd after her first 2 dives. It's a 303C from the 5-meter height.
She looked a little nervous coming off of the platform there, maybe just taking a moment to kind of calm herself down. It's a good dive, but it's a very simple dive. Her easiest of the competition with just a degree of difficulty of 2.1. As a result, it's not going to be a dive that moves the needle much. Good scores from the judges, but only for a total of 40.95. Back up to the 10-meter, though, for a Texas diver looking to come back from not her best second-round dive.
Pineda up on a 305C.
Oh, that's a beautiful dive. A little bit of a splash there when she hit the water. She had that pop sound that you want, but didn't quite have as clean of an entry as you'd like to see. However, she looked extremely confident coming off of that platform. A beautiful reverse 2.5.
Good scores. One of the best dives we've seen here in round 3 from Paula Pineda. 58.80 puts her at 146.90. Currently in 2nd behind Amy Wilson. It was a good bounce-back dive from Sophia Rousey. What does she have here for her 3rd?
And that was a good-looking reverse 1.5. Only a degree of difficulty of 2.1, so not something that's really going to move her up the standings one way or the other at this point. Comes out, though, a little bit too late in reaching for the water, so it over-rotates.
That the easiest dive of the 5 she will compete. Score of 34.65. Elizabeth Q, 5th place after 2 dives. This also her easiest dive. In the back, 1.5 somersault pike.
Now that was beautiful, just slightly over-rotated, which is why she had that splash. If she had been just a little bit more at the right vertical angle, I don't think her entry would have looked like that. Fairly solid scores, but again with a degree of difficulty down at a 2.3, only 42.55 for her total score for that round.
Rachel Rubidoux got off to a great start her first dive. Had a setback, second time up. What does she have on this 205B from the 10 meter? A DD of 2.9.
Oh, that's her best dive of the competition. Absolutely. Great pike position in the air. See her bend her knees, gets as much out as she can. But what makes the difference is that was a heck of an entry.
59.454 Roubidou. She won platform at the 2016 SEC Championships in 17 and 18, finishing second place. It's all SEC second team last year. 303C for Kalanji.
And the only dive we're going to see from her down on the 5 meter, the rest of her list is all off of the 10 meter platform. A very simple reverse 1.5, but very well executed. Great entry into the water, and the judges really liked it.
48.30, 3/8 in there for Kalanji. There's one final dive left in round number 3. Small setback, uncharacteristic, you had said, from Bromberg in her last dive. This a back 3.5 somersault tuck.
Oh, that is a heck of a way to come back from a frustrating second round. A back 3.5. This is incredibly difficult. So much rotation to complete. Hits the water with a little bit of a twist and somewhat of a splash, but the judges are going to reward how difficult of a dive that was and how well it was executed.
Score solid for Bromberg. 7s, 7.5s, a 70.95, so that will keep her in first place. Has to be pleased with that effort, as would be head coach Matt Scoggin for the University of Texas. 2 rounds left. Round 4, women's platform. When we come, Wilson, Pineda, Hernandez, Roubidou, Q, Mosenia, and Merriman 1 through 8 in the women's platform final. Rounds 4 and 5 still to be competed, underway here in Austin, Texas. Day number 3, the final of the 2018 University of Texas Hall of Fame Diving Invitational.
Bromberg showed some resiliency in that last round, coming back from a tough second round. But also, I thought Paula Pineda, that was really a game-changing round for her. Made up quite a bit of ground to put her now up to 3rd place. Now another back arm stand, and what the athletes can do is choose how they want to get into the handstand. They are not judged until right now, right when their legs are together and they are in that handstand position under control. So however they actually want to get there is up to them. Some will press up, some will kick up, but in general it doesn't actually matter, and it should not be judged until their legs are together.
Happy with that one. The Purdue teammates have been so great all week in supporting their fellow divers. A nice 48.60 for Maggie Merriman. Mosenia, 7th place after her 3 dives.
She's very consistent. She's only on the 5 meter compared to some of the other things we're seeing and more difficult dives we're seeing off of 7 and 10, but she's really landing on her head every time, which sometimes is all you need to do in some of these events. Just be consistent and wait for other people to slip up here and there.
That her easiest dive competed of the 5, and when you say land on your head, that obviously is a good thing.
It's not as easy as it sounds, though, sometimes, all right?
Monica Gaveris with a 203B.
Oh, it's a beautiful dive. She has a great pike position in the air. Very polished, beautifully pointed toes, straight legs. Low DD, so you're not going to move the needle much with this one. But a dive she should be happy with.
.70, and really, as you listen, the point that you've been making, you can tell a good dive, a good rip, just what it sounds like.
You can hear the difference.
Yes.
You can definitely hear the difference. You should be able to hear a diver's hands hit the water. And that entry is the most important part. It's telling of whether or not you hit the water at the right angle perfectly vertical. You want to make sure you're not under or over rotated. You can't get a good rip unless you hit the water perfectly. Shoulders, legs, everything in line.
So Lily Schneider in with her fourth dive. Jolie Blodgett, 203B from the 5-meter height.
Now you're seeing dives in every direction. Not only can the athletes choose which platform they're going to go off of between 5, 7.5, and 10, they can choose the order of their dives. The only requirement is that out of the 6 categories on platform, so forward, backward, reverse, inward, twister, and arm stand, they have to execute dives from 5 of those 6 categories.
1 5, 3 5.5s, 2 6s, and a 6.5. 39.10. Maha Emmer with a reverse dive tuck.
We also just saw this off a 10-meter with a simple reverse dive pike. To my point earlier, you have to execute something from 5 of the 6 categories. And if you don't have anything in that reverse direction, you really have to put even the most simple dive up there in order to be eligible and qualified to compete.
Solid scores, but the DD is what keeps that total score low, only 2.4 from Emmer. Connie Deaton, 52-33D from the 5-meter.
Back 1.5 twist. Didn't make her body perfectly straight as she was hitting the water. You can see her hips are a little curved, a little bit of a hollow body there hitting the water. Total score of a 40.0.
Puts her at 163.60 for the competition. As Amy Wilson up on the arm stand forward, 1 somersault pike. Was in second place after the last round.
She's very comfortable in that arm stand. Oh, little check there, just fine. But it only completes 1 rotation after that. Simple dive, degree of difficulty only a 1.7.
Freshman from Calgary, Canada, youngest member of Team Alberta in the 2013 Canada Games, a member of the Canadian Junior National Team since 2014. Ivy Hauser struggled her last dive. She bounced back here. Same dive we saw from Deaton. 2 back. Also same height, 5 meters.
You know what, if you see here, she looks like she almost falls off of the tower so much as jumps off of it. She doesn't really get any height, and she doesn't jump up. So she seems to struggle to make that dive all the way around, really straining there on the end, doesn't quite get there, and ends up a bit splashy as well.
38.75 for Hauser. Bring up Ana Hernandez.
A back 2.5 tuck here. Huge jump in degree of difficulty compared to her last round. 3.0.
Up from 2.1. Same height at 5 meters.
Oh, just doesn't quite have the strength in that dive to make it all the way around. Looks like she's coming off that tower pretty strong, but just can't get enough rotation in order to make it around. A lot of deductions as a result of that kind of short angle as she hits the water.
So disappointing dive for Pineda. Next diver will be from the University of Texas, Paula Pineda.
I talked to Coach Scoggin earlier about Paula, and he had some really phenomenal things to say about her training regimen and just how disciplined she is. He said he's actually able to challenge her more, asks more of her than anyone else, because that's how she grew up training. and it's what she's used to. So he can really push her and ask for a lot more diving out of her in practice than what he does from everyone else.
Just accustomed to being that hard of a worker. Something I'm sure any and every coach
Absolutely.
loves-
That is a
loves to
quality
have.
I would look for in recruiting, that's for sure.
Pineda was third after 3 rounds of diving. Her fourth, a back 2.5 somersault tuck.
Oh, and this is the same dive we just saw from Ana Hernandez, but executed much better. So much strength off the tower. She is flipping so quick. Needs to come out of that just a hair earlier to reach for the water in order to not over-rotate. But if her eventual goal is to do a back 3.5 on 10 meters, she's on her way.
A physical culture and sports major. The freshman with a 46.50.
Did you see Coach Goggins said you're ready for 10 meters? Maybe at the end of the season we'll see in conference championships if she's doing a back 3.5 up on 10.
Could read the words off of Coach Scoggins' lips.
4 years with him. I feel like I,
Tuned in.
yes, I'm well aware of what's going through that man's mind sometimes when he sees a quality dive like that off a 5 meter.
Sophia Rousey will go into a handstand for her 614B.
She needs to pop off of that platform a little bit more in order to get that rotation going. A pretty pike position in the air. Solid handstand. She looks very comfortable. But needs a little bit more power off of the platform so she doesn't leave it just a little bit short there, creating that splash.
Another look at what you were just talking about. 5.5, 3 6.5s, 3 6s, 44.40 for Rousey. 6th place after 3 dives, Elizabeth Q.
There's a great reverse 1.5 pike. Again, Lizzie's dives are a little bit more simple than some of the other things we're seeing, but she is competing them very well. Right there you can see she hits the water at the perfect angle. She's happy with it. We'll say that.
7s all the way across the board, 50.40 for the Olympian. First competitor from New Zealand.
You can see
Since
there.
the Barcelona games, looking at the
Look, I
iPad.
was going to say, looking at her iPad, getting to see that dive firsthand.
Big smile. Rachel Rubidoux, 5th place after round 3. Up to the 10 meter for a reverse 2.5 somersault tuck.
Excellent dive. A little bit of a splash there, but you can see she has that rip on its way. Could maybe jump a little bit higher off of the platform, but makes it easily and has great timing, sees her spot and makes sure to kick out of that tuck strong.
Last year, reached her first NCAA championship final, placing 7th on the 1 meter at her hometown club pool. NCAA is being hosted in Columbus last year. They'll be here in Austin come springtime.
What a great experience this is, too, to get comfortable on these towers before NCAA championships. A new pool, you're looking at just new spots, making sure you fully understand your surroundings, and to have this experience leading into March is crucial.
Kalanji up on her hardest dive, tied with her first with a DD of 3.2.
Pressing into that arm stand, by far her best dive of the competition. Take a look, there's so much happening here. She's coming off her hands, a back double with 1.5 twists. Beautiful entry, gets a rip. You can really hear that pop sound from her. When she lands a dive right, she has one of the best rips you'll see in this competition.
One of the more impressive dives we've seen in the competition as well, reflected in the scores. 3 8s, 4 7.5, say 73.60, puts her at 199 even. Right now in first place, but still one dive to come from Murphy Bromberg.
And Bromberg is the only athlete competing dives of this caliber. A back arm stand triple. The degree of difficulty is a 3.3. Oh, just too much strength. The most important part of this dive is being able to pop off of the platform in order to get this dive rotating quick enough to complete it. You have to be so strong in your shoulders. And she has more than enough momentum to do that, but doesn't see her spot or waits a little too long after she does to kick and reach for the water. 4.5s across the board for a total of 44.55. Still manages, though, to maintain that lead because of how difficult her list is.
She's at 225 even. Still in first is the redshirt senior Murphy Bromberg. The men coming up later, they will compete. Jordan Windle on platform later this afternoon, but one more round from the women. One final round of diving here at the 2018 University of Texas Hall of Fame Diving Invitational for the women on tower. Right now, Bromberg, Kalanji, Rubadu, Pineda, Hugh, Wilson, Hernandez, and Merriman, 1 through 8. 17 divers in this lone segment of competition. No preliminaries to finals. Close things out for the women across these 3 days of competition.
And round 4 was big for Elise Kalanji and Rachel Rubadu. Really climbed up the standings and closed the gap between them and the leader, Murphy Bromberg, who struggled there on her back arm stand. 26 points. It's still a really solid lead heading into this last round, but you never know.
Also solid rounds from Pineda and Q. Jump back up into the mix as well. Sean Myers will close out her competition with a 52-33D. Back 1.5 somersault, 1 1/2 twist free.
All smiles. She looks excited to kind of close out this week. Long week of competition for all of these athletes if they have competed in all 3 events. Really good practice for later on in the season. Back 1.5 with 1.5 twists. You'll see she loses her form a little bit here while she's twisting. You have to keep your body really tight. Her legs kind of cross and split apart. Toes become unpointed. It's little things like that that the judges are going to deduct for along the way.
Big smile still, 41.25, ends her day with a 193.05. And Kat, you've talked about it the last 2 days. The just portion of this season and why it is so hard, the training that these athletes are undergoing, what they're doing in the weight room, and really that they're just trying to build up for what's on the horizon, where they go after the new year. This also with Thanksgiving, you have the holidays to break.
You're not peaking right now. That's not what's happening right now. You're getting some experience. You're testing out maybe some tougher dives. You're getting a feel for an event where you have to have prelims and finals in the same day. But they're still in the weight room 3 days a week in addition to 3 morning practices and 5 afternoon practices, and maybe they got a day or 2 off from the weight room before coming into this. But right in the thick of a dual meet season as well, these divers are tired and really just trying to see what they're able to accomplish under those circumstances.
Merriman ends with a 49.60. Take me back to your diving days, your favorite time of the year, I'm sure?
Yeah, loved it. Who doesn't love a good weight room session after 2 practices already that day?
Lots of travel as well.
Yeah, that gets tough. And keep in mind, they're trying to keep up with school at the same time.
Finals right around this time. More on the horizon.
A lot of time management.
Messenia ends with a 612B, her easiest dive.
She was very consistent, but again, doing some dives off of 5 meter with some lower degrees of difficulty. 6s from all the judges, but just a 30.6 in total score for that round.
See her exchanging remarks and commentary with head coach. Monica Gavaris will close out with a reverse 1.5 somersault tuck.
It's a good looking dive. A little bit slow in the air, which, I mean, she's trying to control it. She doesn't want to over rotate or anything. She can very easily make that dive around, but a bit of a splash when she hits the water there. In general, pretty solid way to complete her list up there on tower.
5.5, 5 6s, and a 6.5, 196.30 for the diver from the University of Hawaii. Lily Schneider close out on a 405C, inward 2.5 somersault tuck for the sophomore.
Makes that dive easily. Great distance from the tower. That's something that can be a little tricky because I think naturally you probably want to jump away from something like a platform, but you need to keep your body close to that tower. Holds on a bit too long, maybe just a little too easy of a dive for her up there, slightly over-rotated.
33.75 puts her at 156.80. Jolie Blodgett will close out her competition with the 52.51B. Third consecutive dive from the 10 meter.
Now, she started off this competition a bit rough. She was very frustrated with her first round dive. So I think hoping to just be able to bounce back from those dives is the goal at that point. Finishes on a pretty good round.
44.20 final score. Final dive, the final score 165.30 for Blodgett. Maha Emmer. Back 1.5 somersault, 1 1/2 twist free.
It's a good looking dive. Really like her entry. She manages to keep her body and her legs tight throughout that twist, which is important. Squares up and reaches for the water for a great final dive.
Couple of good looks. The final dive for the Arkansas Razorback. Good scores as well. She'll end with a 211.20. Connie Dayton. Reverse 1.5 somersault tuck. This from the 5 meter.
She just really gets on the end of the platform, takes one breath and goes, which I like. I don't think she's overthinking anything. I think she just gets up there and she knows she can do this dive. bit over rotated. That is all timing right there. She needed to see her spot at the right time to know to kick and reach for the water and just hold on too long.
6 4.5s and a 4 for 28.35 for Dayton. Amy Wilson. The freshman will close out from the 5 meter, the back 2.5 somersault tuck.
Amy's had a solid day so far. Everything off of the 5 meter, so it doesn't quite have hard enough dives to keep up with the likes of Bromberg and Kalanji, but consistent.
Got up
And
just
it continues. Ends it on a very consistent note. That is a back 2.5 tuck is not an easy dive off of 5 meter. Degree of difficulty is a 3.0. She completes the rotation easily and also sees her spot and kicks strong in order to land perfectly vertical on the water. Excellent last round dive.
7s from 6 of the judges and a 6.5. She had been up in second place after round 3. Down to 6 after the last round. See where she finishes up. Ivy Hauser will finish up her competition with an arm stand forward 2 somersault pike.
You see her kick up into that arm stand. Maybe could have held it for a hair longer. But Pike's there a little bit right before she comes off of the tower in order to start getting her momentum going in order to complete 2 rotations. Doesn't quite make it all the way around. Some splash there coming off of her legs as she hits the water.
5 5.5s, a 6 and a 5 for 39.60 for Hauser. Ana Hernandez will close things out with a 51.52B.
Only 2 dives off of 10 meter in this competition. Again, she had some injuries last year, coming back from some knee stuff. So I think this is a matter of just getting her more comfortable and eventually getting all of her dives up off of 10 meter.
She opened on the 10, the 3 others from the 5, and now this.
A full in, so a front 2.5 with 1 twist. She opts to do the twist at the beginning of the dive. Twist there and then reaches into that pike position. You see a nice tight pike. Lets go of that pike and reaches for the water a little bit ahead of herself. Not quite at the angle she needs to in order to make that dive all the way around. Splash always looks so much worse in slow motion, but she did have quite a splash there coming off of her legs as she hit the water.
2 5.5s, rest 6s for a 228.35 cumulative score for Hernandez, currently in second place. Paula Pineda will close things out. Her hardest dive tied with her initial opening dive, DD-wise 3.2 on a 52.53B.
There's a lot happening here. She'll be doing a 2.5 somersaults backwards, throwing in a 1.5 twist as well. A dive we'll see later on in the competition. Just doesn't quite make it around. You see she's still kind of in that pike position when she hits the water. Needs to get a little bit more momentum on this rotation. Instead, right there, her legs are still in that pike. Doesn't quite get her body all the way straight. And the judges are gonna deduct for that one.
41.60 for 235 even. That is the dive we will see Murphy Bromberg close out her sheet with. The next 4 dives, all the same, outside of what we'll see from Kalanji. So the next 3, excuse me.
Back 1.5 with 1.5 twists off of the 5 meter. Very well done. I think I see her legs twist a little bit. She isn't perfectly square when she hits the water. You see them kind of twist. A little bit nitpicky. I like this angle here, though. You can see her coming off strong from the platform and immediately moving her arms to start twisting.
Solid 6s and 6.5s for Rousey. Ends at 197.30. Talking with teammate Carla Pineda.
Gotta jump into that hot tub and stay warm. It's cold in here for these athletes.
Especially up top on the 10 meter. Lizzie Q, same dive.
It's not that cold. You would just be shaking up there. That's what that is.
Absolutely. True to both.
Same dive that we saw from Rousey, but actually executed better. She's going to see higher scores. And when the judges see it back to back like that, they might reward it even more because they've seen a dive so similar early. She needs a little bit cleaner entry when she hits the water, but otherwise a really great looking back 1.5, 1.5.
Technically seems so sound from what we've seen.
Every
does Q.
every dive of hers is very technically sound.
It's impressive on the 1 meter. We'll end with a 240.25. Currently in second place behind teammate Amy Wilson. Rachel Rubidoux will close things out with a 52.35D. So these next two dives the same.
A back 1.5 with 2.5 twists. The angle at which you take off from the platform is very crucial on this dive. You need to get the exact perfect speed on the rotation. And she's able to do so. She tries to control it a little too much on the end there. I think she had the speed and the power to make this dive all the way around and land at a better angle compared to the water. Instead, leaves it just a little bit short there. One of the reasons why she also has a bit of a splash.
3 6s, 4 in there, 3 6.5s. A solid offering from Rubidoux to close out her day. Puts her up into first. So the battle possibly for second, along with Kalanji, both chasing Bromberg. Kalanji will close out, same dive.
Oh, that was excellent. She really jumped off of that platform. I think that's the difference between her and Rachel Rubidoux's takeoff. Is she gets a little bit more height, really controls the pace of that rotation in order to give herself enough time. Just a hair past vertical, but a great way to end this dive, or end this round.
So solid dive from Kalanji, scores solid as well. 6.5, 7s. 256.40 will put her ahead of Rubidoux. So into first place, but will that only be momentarily? DD of 3.2 for the final dive for Murphy Bromberg. Mentioned second place at last year's NCAA. You had mentioned it to me earlier. Really high expectations as to what she can do at this year's NCAA tournament.
In her final season, I know she's looking to win NCAAs. Here, she only needs 31.5 points in order to win this competition over Kalanji. And she'll easily get that. Not even with her best dive, but it will be enough. She's going to look a little disappointed. I've seen her nail this dive for 8s, 9s even. Just over-rotates and loses control of the dive a bit there at the end. However, she had enough of a lead to keep her in that first place position and close out this week with a title.
So that'll do it. 271.40. Well clear is Murphy Bromberg to take home the title. Texas women taking the last two events we have seen. So a successful week for the ladies on the diving side. This platform has concluded. Smiles all around. Look, the iPad's even waterproof.
It's gotten very fancy here.
The redshirt senior victorious with a score of 271.40. We will take a quick break and chat with Murphy Bromberg when we come back. Welcome back to Austin, Texas, as we wrap things up on the women's side of the competition with the platform. Murphy Bromberg, the champion from the University of Texas. Tyler Denning, Kat LaRocca, and Kat, your thoughts on the competition from Murphy Bromberg?
I was really impressed. For this time of the year, she looks so strong. Still needs to work on maybe some of her timing and controlling some of those dives, but at this point in the season, that's to be expected. What I loved is just how aggressive she was getting after her dives.
So it's great that we get to now welcome her in. We got your thoughts, Murphy, your thoughts on your competition, how you performed today.
Yeah, like Kat said, for this time of the year, it wasn't too bad. The tops are there, just need to work on control, like she said, and just putting together a good list.
Now, the top and the bottom was there for your back 3.5 tuck. Can you take us through that dive?
Sure. One of the things we've been working really hard on for that dive is being in the right distance to the tower. So I put it in pretty good distance, and that was good since that's something we're trying to improve. And then just seeing your spots and staying tight through the water.
Now, what were your key takeaways? What are you looking to improve now as you head into the back half of your season?
So it's been going pretty well in practice, but just putting that together in a meet. Mid-season platform meets are pretty challenging, so I'm looking forward to the end of this season and really putting what we've been doing in practice all together.
Well, tell us about what you are looking forward to, being a redshirt senior, and you've been around the second place finish last year.
Yeah.
How are you trying to focus and build towards what is on the horizon?
I'm super excited for NCs and zones and just everything at the end of the year. You know, we are hosting both meets at Texas, and that's really exciting. I couldn't think of a better way to finish up my last year.
Now, how about your springboard performance as well this week? Historically, very much a platform diver, but showing some excellent stuff on 3 meter and 1 meter. How has that developed over the years?
Thank you. Yeah, so I had surgery a couple years ago, and I wasn't able to go on platform for about an entire year. So we worked a lot on springboard, and we've been working with Anna a lot in the weight room, trying to get stronger. So I'm pretty happy with how that's developed.
So we're not talking to head coach Matt Scogging, but put your coach's cap on, and how do you think coach feels about how you guys performed as a team this weekend?
I think Matt will be very happy. Maybe he'll even give us Monday morning off.
We'll put in a good word for you.
Yeah, thank you. Overall, it was really good. Mid-season meet, it's a good evaluation of the team, and I think the team as a whole is looking really great. Jordan's performance yesterday was incredible. Al was really tough on that 1 meter competition, winning it. Overall, yeah, everyone's practicing really well, looking really, really strong in the weight room. So I'm really excited with this team.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your win, and congratulations on the great week.
Thank you.
Kat, any final thoughts on the women's competition?
You know what? I was pretty impressed with both Murphy Bromberg and Elise Kalanji. I think moving into the back half of the season, they're going to really hone down on some of these details. To Murphy's point, the tops are there. She just has to figure out how to control them. And that's a really great place to be right now.
So successful